Aloha. It's June the 9th, 2021. It's Wednesday. It's 11 o'clock. I'm Tim Apicella, your host, and welcome to What Now America. The title of the show today is Senator Manchin, Ally or Roadblock for Biden. You know, in the Obama administration, we had a certain leader of the Senate named Mitch McConnell, and it was his job to basically obstruct everything as far as legislation of the Obama administration. I'd say pretty much, other than the Affordable Care Act and a few other important laws that were passed, Mitch McConnell was quite successful. And we're having deja vu. And that is Mitch McConnell is trying to make sure that everything that President Biden wants to bring forth to the Senate floor is going to be blocked. And if it's not blocked one way, it'll be blocked with a filibuster. So the title of the show is aptly named because Joe Manchin, senator from West Virginia, I'm not sure if he's a GOP or an independent or a Democrat anymore. And the bottom line is he has said recently that he will not support the H1 voting bill that is going to be introduced. He won't support that. And he certainly won't support the elimination of the filibuster, nor will he support any modification of the filibuster. So we all know that without any modification of the filibuster, it's business as usual. And who wins the day? Mitch McConnell. So without further ado, let me go to my guests. Good morning, everyone. I would like to welcome Jay Fidell, Stephanie Dalton, Winston Welch, and Cynthia Lee Sinclair. Thank you for coming on What Now America. Jay, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, what do you think about Joe Manchin's position on no amendments, no modification, no revision of the filibuster? He's set firm. He planted his flag very firmly in terra firma, and he's not going to budge on that. What's going to get done without that? What's going to get done with immigration? What's going to get done with the infrastructure? What's going to get done with all these proposals that Joe Biden wants to push forward? Are we looking at a lame duck session for the next 3 years, 3.5 years, actually?
The only thing that's going to get done, I keep trying to figure out what happened with that China bill. There was ones that one a couple of days ago that passed, and it was a bill that I wouldn't call it an attack on China, but it was adverse to China. It was an attempt to even the playing field with China. It was not pro-China. It was more like trying to neutralize China. And so that passed. It passed both houses. And so you can't say that the Senate never voted for anything. Why that one, not the other ones? And the answer is Trump would like that one. He wants to neutralize China as much as he can. And so that's what McConnell is doing. He's taking Trump's orders. So if you ask me what is going to get done in this administration, it's whatever Trump wants. It's the Trump platform. It's the things that Trump likes to do, because McConnell's going to follow that. It's the Republican agenda. That's what it is. Now, as for what Biden wants to do, I agree with you. None of that is going to pass. Not the voting rights bills, either of them. Not the filibuster, the repeal or amend the filibuster. Not infrastructure, not immigration, not gun control. I could go on. None of those Democratic initiatives are going to pass. And the reason is the Republicans are at war with the Democrats. They want to make it clear the Democrats, even though they theoretically hold a majority, are powerless. And they're going to increasingly argue that Joe Biden is powerless and incompetent. And that is going to have a big effect on the way a lot of people vote in 2022 and ultimately 2024. And so, it's a big problem, because there really are no logical options except to get this one man, this fulcrum person, Manchin, to change his mind on a bunch of things. Otherwise, they don't have a majority. They cannot raise a majority.
We kind of point the finger at Joe Manchin, but it's probably true that there's other Democrats in the Senate that are very hesitant about tampering with the filibuster. So they're letting Joe Manchin be the point person on that mission. It maybe not just be Joe Manchin. So
it's a good point. It's a good point. But I would say this: if Manchin were to turn around and say, "Okay, I support a repeal or amendment of the filibuster," they would follow along. They wouldn't want to be They wouldn't want to have the negative spotlight on them. One of the things that was mentioned on MSNBC last night by that retired newscaster, I want to say Wallace, who criticized the Biden administration, as people are increasingly doing these days, by saying, why doesn't he attack them at home? Why doesn't he show pictures of what happens when a bridge fails? Why doesn't he, make a stink about it? Instead, he's playing by the rules of the Fauntleroy. He's not really going after the Republicans, and the result is it's the nice guys who bring the knife to the knife fight, and the GOP that brings the guns. And so, in Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, this is not going to work. It hasn't worked yet. In fact, if you watch it, you see that he's killed. Trump killed 3 months of his term by delaying the transition. Then he killed a couple of months by waiting for the Republicans in a non-negotiating negotiation. That was really foolish because we all know they were stringing him along. And for him to fall into that it's embarrassing that he didn't do more. So what I get here is you got to bring a gun to the knife fight. You got to actually have an argument. You can't be Mr. Rogers. We have Mr. Rogers and he's losing.
Yeah, I agree. That was a great interview. It was Chris Matthews. And I love he said what other people have been saying. I've been saying it for years. Democrats need to learn how to fight and fight hard and fight sometimes, get down to the same level of the GOP. And people don't like to hear that. They don't like to think that, well, that's beneath us. And we're gentlemen Jims when we get in the ring, the boxing ring, when we're proper and we don't do those sort of things. Well, fine. You're going to lose the midterm and you're going to lose 2024 if you keep it up. Anyway,
that's where we're going. So, to answer your question, I don't think he can do anything. It may be that he's already, the die is cast. Les jeux en fait. This is the way it's going to be in this administration. And Trump and McConnell are going to have their way. They're going to stop every single initiative that Biden or the Democratic Party wants to do.
Thank you, Jay. Hey, Stephanie, do you agree with Jay that we're dealing with a president by proxy, being Donald Trump, and that President Biden has very few options, of any? I know he has one budget resolution left in him, and that'll probably be for the infrastructure. The GOP will be kicking and screaming all the way because he's going to probably bounce that back up to 2.1 trillion. That's if he has Joe Manchin on his side on this one, which he may or may not. Do you think that Biden has very few tools in the toolbox? And are we dealing with a lame session for the next 3.5 years?
Oh, thank you. I think we're on the high road. Joe has taken the high road, Mr. Rogers' neighborhood approach, and that's where we are. And he's done it. We're there. We've got that context, that backdrop. Everything's been done. And absolutely, I agree with Jay. He needs to turn the screws here. Okay. And turn.
Was that a check box? Was that a check mark in the checkbox that, see, Joe, we tried it your way and it didn't work, and we squandered 2-3 months trying to do so, but we did it your way? Was that what the purpose of this was?
Well, I think that's what Rachel's pointing out and highlighting for us to understand. We got these 3 chunks, as Jay has pointed out, of time. The transition's gone. The first 3 months are gone. I mean, we're behind now on getting judges in, and then way behind on negotiations, understanding that they're not going anywhere. Now Joe has done everything. He's gone beyond the high road to just testing to make sure he was on the right road. Actually, there's no way to see him doing anything but a good thing. And now it's just, he needs to get down and dirty. And I want to know about Angus King and Mitt Romney, and won't they vote with Democrats on these bills? So these people that are out there, we can't count on them. Do they just, like Angus King's an independent and he mostly votes with the Democrats. So why are we not out there? And why isn't Joe Manchin talking to Angus King? Or why aren't we pulling in these loose ends and nailing them down? I understand that Susan Collins isn't going to help anything out. And we've got the Alaska senator. That's another one that we have. Well, why aren't they doing this about the Senate and who's going to be there for the call to vote.
All
What
right.
aren't
Yeah.
we?
Good
got
good
the
points. Well,
crumbs?
you know,
Like,
the real question is, does Joe Manchin even have a chance in winning the 2024 reelection? I'm sorry, but Donald Trump, West Virginia, by 40 points. It's a red state. Yet the reason Joe Manchin probably won as a senator is because he was a beloved governor of that state. It's right for, you know, a GOP Senate replacement, and it's doubtful he's going to even pull the 2024 reelection off or not.
well, he's a protege of Senator Byrd, and Senator Byrd, he's modeling. Manchin's modeling himself after Senator Byrd, except that he got Byrd's message wrong. Byrd was a stickler for protocol and the rules of the Congress and the Senate and all of that. But he got to the point where he would not tolerate a do nothing Congress, which is what it is that you asked about to begin with. To go back into that Obama nightmare of nothing happening for years and years on end is not acceptable to anybody. And so that's where Joe Manchin has got Senator Byrd all wrong, because Byrd would have certainly called it by now that no, we're not stymieing the entire Senate and legislation passing through because of this particular tactic.
All
Wouldn't
right.
have stood according to what I've heard and read.
Okay. Thank you,
So-
Stephanie. Hey, Winston, where does Joe Manchin go from here? I'm not sure what his motivation is. I understand it's in the name of a bipartisanship in the Senate and returning the Senate to the days of glory where both parties got along and got things done. That clearly is not the case, and Mitch McConnell said so in so many words. Just recently said bipartisanship is dead. Well, as far as I'm concerned, bipartisanship was dead before Joe Biden took the oath of office. And Mitch McConnell basically stated as such. His job is to block everything that he could with Joe Biden and his agenda. Where's Joe Manchin come in from this?
You know, when I read what he said, and if you take it at face value, he says, I don't want to contribute to an America that's more divided than it already is. But as you said, when you have the leader saying the bipartisanship is dead, he, and I think to President Biden's credit, they have been functioning under an assumption that we do have a working Congress now that Donald Trump is gone, and that we can regain some sense of normalcy, of proper behavior, of doing what's right for the nation. And I think that we're coming from a place of that. Joe Biden, as Stephanie was pointing out, now, or maybe Jay or both, there's been 3 months lost or 6 months lost or whatever it is, whether because of the transition time, but we're just lucky that Joe Biden's in office, frankly. I mean, at this point, we're seeing there's so much cleanup. It's shocking when you really step back. It's kind of like after a major earthquake, and even though a number of buildings fell down and were really shaken, when you really start looking at the damage, you realize, whoa, all these buildings need to be completely either retrofitted or torn down and rebuilt, and from the foundation on up. And it can still look the same on, when we're all said and done, or maybe it'll look different, but right now it's unsafe. And I think that's kind of where we're at as the nation, just stepping back and looking at that. So Joe Manchin is coming from that. I don't think that he's actually, I mean, like you said, his state was 40 points for Donald. And I don't think he's positioning himself as future running mate for Ted Cruz or Marjorie Taylor Greene as vice presidential candidate. I don't think it's any of that. I think he's actually just wanting to go back to a simpler time when people could reach across the aisle based on principled ideas. And so while
You think he's legitimate? It's
Yeah, I was
really
gonna
a
ask
big
that question.
question.
Yeah, I agree.
Because
think
the
that he
bottom
is.
line is that he's blocking everything, and that's the gestalt of it. How he gets there really doesn't matter. He is blocking everything, and he's a sentient human being. He must have a reason for that. It's not noble thoughts. It's not high morality. Is something wrong with Joe Manchin? Something is radically wrong, and we had better appreciate it.
Well, you could go the what compromat do they have on him route, but I mean, for all intents and purposes, he is a Republican, and he's a Republican that can be swayed over to the other side. He just happens to carry the D after his name. So, at the end of the day, I think he is actually, from my perspective, my feeling. While yes, he can't stop this because what if he does? We're looking at a permanently gerrymandered minority rule party, which is not good. It's not healthy for the nation, and everything else that goes along with that. But I think that he's actually looking back at a kinder, gentler time and thinking we can regain this. Now with Biden, he went through that with Obama. They squandered so much capital trying to think they could do this, and I think in that rule, while he gave it a good shot, shame on you fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And I think that's the lesson kind of that he needs to take from here. I don't know how he plays hardball with this. Maybe he goes over to the governor from Alaska and says, "Have you had enough shenanigans yet? I will give you
Hey,
gold toilets for everyone."
Hey, Winston, does Joe Manchin someday become an independent? It's been done before by other senators where they caucus with both parties.
He already is. I mean, he's not functioning as a Democrat in any way that I can discern, and so that I might actually be sort of a great awakening is if Joe Biden maybe just made an appeal to everybody and said, "Hey, vote your conscience on stuff, folks. Free yourselves, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, and just say, I'm aligning myself inside of my party with this, that, or the other, and I'm going to vote the way that I want to vote." And if he actually gave them the conscience to do that, the Republicans are much more disciplined, so they wouldn't break ranks like
Well,
that.
they're under the influence of Donald Trump. They've been
They are,
hypnotized.
but that would be an interesting experiment because if he could say, Republicans, you free yourselves, Democrats, you free yourselves, like in the olden days when people used to cross the aisles, that used to happen in this nation in my lifetime.
Yeah.
So it's not going to happen. It's naive. I understand that, but it would be a really interesting experiment if you
Hope
freed everybody.
springs eternal, Winston. Hope springs eternal. Hey,
That's my very little optimistic thought for the day because basically
Thank you.
it's full of pessimism. So.
Yeah, well, that's all right. Hey, Cynthia, I saw you reacting on a lot of things. What do you want to say?
Oh, goodness. I agree. I know. Where do I start, right? First, I want to start off with, we keep saying that Mitch McConnell is following Trump. Mitch McConnell started this way before Trump ever came anywhere near us. And while Trump was in office, Mitch McConnell said, "I am the Grim Reaper," and did not bring one single thing to the floor except what benefited him and his Republicans. So I think it's important to remember that. We keep saying Donald Trump is the worst man and the most dangerous man. No, Mitch McConnell, I believe, is the most dangerous man in Washington. And until we get rid of him, we're not going to go anywhere because he's the one who does this partisan split thing. In order to go back to the way things were when the Congress worked, we got to go all the way back to Bush because that's the time it worked.
Why don't we go back to the Constitution? There's nothing in the Constitution about a filibuster. There is verbiage in the Constitution about how Congress shall work. I mean, you got to wonder if someday can that be challenged in the Supreme Court. I don't know, but there's nothing that states that a filibuster must exist.
Exactly. See, and that's the kind of stuff that I think we need to really start working on. And so, okay, the next thing I want to say is I believe that Joe Manchin just is doing it for the pure ego. I don't think he has any other real motivations except that he's a hero now. He is number one man in Congress now, right? And that's a very powerful, place to be. It puffs you up and makes you feel great. So I've watched him and he looks different now. You see him on camera. He talks different. He kind of walks different. He is full of himself and it shows in all of his body movements and all of his body.
So are you saying his personal motivation is personal power?
Yes.
Is that why he's pulling this off?
I believe that. And the only way to get rid of it and to pull his power plug out is to get a Republican to come over. Because as soon as we get one Republican to come over, Joe Manchin's power is gone, right? Because now he is not the one that is holding all the power anymore.
Who would that be, in your opinion? Who would possibly cross the aisle?
Well,
Alaska. That's the only shot. Well, an Angus King, but he's in it.
Murkowski, I don't know about Murkowski. Maybe. I've got a mental block against the guy, the Mormon guy from
Mitt Romney.
Mitt Romney. I had a mental block for a second. Okay, so but he might be one that could go. Anybody? There's a lot of senators in there. There's got to be one that's kind of like only staying in position because Mitch McConnell's keeping them there. I think that needs to be their main focus, is trying to win those Republicans. And I mean 24/7 trying to win those Republicans. Did anyone see the picture or the news conference when Manchin came out and made his big speech, his big comment? I mean, his big proclamation of, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to support anything, blah, blah, blah. Okay. He was back. He didn't do it by himself. He didn't get out there on his own and do it, in front of a bank of reporters or whatever. He was flanked by Republicans, all Republicans. And Susan Collins was standing behind him, smiling like the Cheshire Cat. I mean, she was so happy listening to him say he wasn't going to vote on anything the Democrats want. And I was just shocked as I'm watching him make this big, I'm the big man on campus now comment, and all these people behind me adore me now. And that's a very powerful thing. And I really think that's part of what's going on for him.
I'm going to go back to you, Jay. I want to kind of continue on. Does Joe Manchin switch parties or become an independent? What's in Joe Manchin's future? What's his motivation?
I think maybe he wants higher office, and maybe he will switch parties. I do not think that his motivation is pure or high-minded. He knows what kind of havoc he's wreaking on the country, on the whole country, on not only Biden but his state. Who his state surveys show that everybody likes these initiatives, wants infrastructure, for example, and he refuses them. It's hard to understand, which makes it questionable on whether his motivations are legitimate. I think they have him. I'm not sure it's compromise or his political ambitions or some sort of threat the next election, primary him, what have you, but they have him. And he is acting like a Republican, isn't he? He's acting destructively. He's got us all held up.
I think he knows that he's not going to win 2024, so he might as well make the transition now and then get reelected for 2024.
Well, whatever it is, I suggest to you guys, it's not going to change. He's there. And I don't think that Susan Collins or Lisa Murkowski are going to step in and become Democrats. That's not going to happen. And what do you think? How do you think Mitch McConnell spends his time? He marshals them all. He's talking to them all. He's the puppeteer, and he's got something on every one of them, or threats of having something to do with primarying them next time. This is really a sick situation.
Yeah.
And if you listen to the tone of Rachel Maddow, you realize that her tone is more strident all the time. She is more pessimistic all the time. She probably watches how Winston gets more pessimistic all the time. Starting out optimistic, and then you wind up being pessimistic. I mean, she is saying that the country is fractured. She is saying there's no real path out of this, and all we can do is follow it. I'm very concerned that Congress has the power. This is about power.
Well, I'm glad to hear that Think Tech Hawaii is an influencer on media and politicians alike. Isn't that a great thing to know?
Shout out to Rachel. We love you. Thanks for watching us.
We do, but it is depressing, and I wait for something good to happen. I wait for somebody to have a clear moment in that august body, and there is none, and there's no sign there will be one. So really, the question is, and we don't have time for it today, but my last comment, if you allow me, is what are we going to do in the new America? because the new America is going to affect all of us, and it won't be pretty. I'm sorry.
All right. Hey, Steve, we're going to switch gears here a little bit. Stephanie, Joe Biden is going to meet with Putin in the very near future. What's Joe Biden going to get out of this meeting?
Oh, I'm shifting gears. I just want to say in response to Jay, I do not agree that Rachel sees no path out of it. She was directly addressing Biden and his role and his obligation, and especially with all of the polls showing that the U.S. public wants this legislation. So I don't think in any way she sees no way out of it. She sees the president as leader become.
Well, I agree. She said that for sure. But yeah. Exactly, she's saying do something. Do something. Yes. I can't tell you what to do, but do something. That's what she says.
Exactly. And so with this, well, first of all, we're going to see Biden over there in that role, which is a huge challenge. He has to step up and be the representative of this nation that he needs to be. And he needs to give this guy the benchmarks here, the bars, how far we're going to go, line in the sand. We're not going to do this, and you're not going to keep attacking us, and this is what's going to happen. So hopefully, this will actually maybe be a transition of Joe Biden from Mr. Rogers and the high road to stepping up to what is his responsibility to protect us from this international threat. And this,
can I add one thing? Sorry, Tim. Just like one thing. Is one of the big reasons that Biden is going to the G7 is to pitch or to agree to get on board about that 15% minimum tax that the fellows in the EU want to do. Okay, and he has said so much. On the other hand, where that comes is in the infrastructure bill. Where that could happen is in the bill. Laying the burden of infrastructure on corporations and charging them a minimum tax of 15%. If that bill isn't going anywhere, Biden has no portfolio on the issue. He cannot produce. If he goes to Europe, he can't agree with them about the 15% minimum tax. So he has been scotched already on that issue.
Okay, thank you. Hey, we're almost out of time, but we did get a question from a viewer, and we value every question we get. So, Winston, to you, the question is this, and it's going back actually to our first topic. Is there an effective strategy for Democrats to pass key legislation?
Maybe he needs to let loose the hounds on the left. I don't know, but I think President Biden is an honorable, noble man, and he is acting like the president. He's going to Europe, which was betrayed by America. They don't even know what happened in the last 4 years. He's going back to reaffirm our traditional roles. He's acting like the president. So I think he just stays steady the course. He has maybe the Mr. Rogers aspect, but there's nothing wrong with Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers and bring a baseball bat. Maybe that's it. But the thing is that as far as maybe he needs to go the route of a lot of his executive orders and just go around the Democrats. Maybe he needs to make emergency executive orders on gerrymandering and let the courts fight it out. And maybe they don't get until 2025. Maybe he does whatever he can, pull out all the stops and bypass the legislature when they're being obstructionists like this, especially when it's one member.
Okay. Hey, Winston, your words often paint visual pictures, and we all appreciate that. Mr. Rogers with a baseball bat. All right. Hey, Cynthia,
I'm advocating violence. No,
of course not. We understand that.
Metaphorical.
Well, Roosevelt said, speak softly, but carry a big stick. So if the president of the past could do it, why can't you? Cynthia, what's Joe Biden going to get out of this with Russia? Does he want to keep the waters calm because he has his hands filled with domestic issues that he can't get past key legislation passed, and he's got China on the doorsteps here causing all sorts of problems? Is it his goal to keep the waters calm between Russia and the United States? That's a leading question. I didn't mean to lead you, but what is Joe Biden hoping to get out of this?
I'm going along with the way you led me because I agree. I think he's just going there to sort of establish a new bankhead, so to speak. He's not going to really get anything out of it because this is Putin. There is nothing to get from that man. So the only thing he can really do is try to establish, this is the line, right? Trump would let you do anything you want, but I will not, right? So if you don't, he also has said he's going to talk to him about this. If you don't crack down on the hackers in your country, we're going to try and do something. And so that's one of the things he said he's going to talk to him about. But as far as what he's going to get from it, I don't think he's going to get anything. But, I want to go, I know we're on last comments and stuff. So really quickly, I just want to say, I have an idea. I have a way to do this. I have an effective strategy for Democrats to pass key legislation.
Bring it out.
Term limits for all of them. None of them can get just constant to power. Power. If they don't get to stay there for very long, they're not going to be able to be manipulated because they won't win the next election or whatever, and if we have to get them to pay them more money for their retirement to get them out of there and to make them go along with it, let's do it. Whatever we got to do. Make it. Mitch McConnell people cannot stay in power like he has for so long.
Yeah. All right. We are out of time. We're going to go last comments. Cynthia, when you're saying term limits, I couldn't agree with you more, but I couldn't help but hear the music of 1986 or 85, We Are the World, being sung in chorus, because that's about how much chance we're going to get. So, okay, not to be cynical, but I am cynical on that one. Jay, last comments. We're going to go around the table here.
Okay. I know it's not the
I know. I love it, Cynthia. I do. I love it so, but we are the world.
I think that the Republican Party has undermined Biden, and we have seen what they can and are doing and will be doing the rest of Biden's term. He's not going to have a productive term. We're going to discuss this whole evolution and the undermining of Biden's presidency tomorrow at 11 on Think America Finding Its Way. Okay, so be prepared for that. It'll be interesting, and there's a number of indicators that we should evaluate.
News at 11. Thanks, Jay. Stephanie, your last comments, please.
I think that will be an illuminating discussion, and look forward to it, and hopefully be inspired to offer some substantive approaches. But I think it is dreadfully frightening, as Jay said earlier, the prospects of going back into another dead zone like we had with Obama, and something we have to come up with some suggestions for how to navigate this. And people like Rachel Maddow and others that may set off. It might be the rock in the stream, and there'll be more ripples, and people will speak up more. And Biden's not getting enough guidance, and he's not getting advice. So we have to make that advice happen, and think Tech Hawaii can give him some tomorrow.
All right. Thank you. Winston.
Like I said, Biden and his entire cabinet, everybody needs to pull out the stops, open the floodgates. Going to meet Russia, going to stand up to China, ingratiate yourself with everybody, the industrial military complex, single mothers, people that want subsidies for their kids, for their dogs, for their highways, for everything else. As I mentioned before, send a Bible and a gun to every home in America, embossed courtesy of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. They can't buy bullets anyway because there's a 9-month waiting list, but the symbology out there might be powerful enough for people just to say, yeah, or this guy's on our side. We got $300 per kid. Our military standing up, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. It's just a thought out there. I don't think Rachel's going to pick up on that one, but you never know. We got to have some creative thinking here.
All right. Thanks, Winston. Once again, embossed Bibles and guns. Hey, Cynthia, you get the last word, but before you do, I'd just like to say, I love the idea of term limits. I'd love to see term limits for federal government, state government, city government, parish government, and even condo association governments. So, I love the idea. I really do. So keep on. Your last comments, please.
So you know me, once I decide I like something, I hammer at it.
I do know that about you. So
I don't give up easy.
No.
My last comments are, as we're going towards this whole conversation about Biden, I was greatly encouraged to watch the response of the military when he was doing his military remarks this morning. I didn't get a chance to hear all of what he said, but what their reaction to what Jill Biden was saying about taking care of the military families at home with childcare and entrepreneurship and whatever they need at home. If we start taking care of the military's families, every single married military is going to be, whoa, and that's going to spread like wildfire. So I was very encouraged to see that this morning. So that's my last remark is an encouraging moment.
All right. Thank you. You get the last word. By the way, I got a text from a very strong GOP friend of mine, and he said, I have to give Joe Biden props and credit for the fact that he did such a great job on that speech, and particularly how it pertained to the military. So I'm sorry I missed that one, but I'm going to have to try to check it out. All right. I want to thank everyone, Jay Fidell, Stephanie Dalton, Winston Welch, and Cynthia Lee Sinclair. Thank you all for coming on the show, What Now America. Join us again next week, Wednesday, 11 o'clock. I'm Tim Apicella, your host, and aloha.